Alright, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Safely Extreme cast here on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. We have another very interesting discussion lined up for this week's show. Joining me, as always, my co-host from Nexus Games, Sharky.
Hello, everybody. And I won't be from Nexus Games, hopefully too much longer. This studio name change. Hopefully we can eventually get it.
Alright, but we got a really interesting one lined up this week. We're going to be talking about kind of the evolution of monetization and live service, pay to win, all those other terms people like to use, and how things have gotten a little bit more evolved over the last, arguably, maybe 3 years. And how a lot of people, I think, are still kind of latching on to the older definitions of pay to win and free to play and whatnot.
Yeah. And how, no matter what kind of monetization it is, everything's grayscale. Mm-hmm. Nothing's just pure black and white. There's no quote unquote just good and just evil. Mm-hmm. There might be some just evil. But there's definitely no just good. Not in the commercial world that is seceded.
Yeah. And for this discussion, just to make sure we're all on the same page, we're ignoring the whole, you buy a game, it's pay to win angle. We're ignoring, the initial price barrier of buying a retail game. What we're specifically focusing on are the uses of monetization, live service, and microtransactions, and how that has changed. In some ways for the better, in some ways for the worse, in a lot of ways, as Shark just said, far more gray than we could say like 10 years ago.
Yeah. Although we do need to clarify that basically pay to win, the meaning of pay to win, the only part that is concrete of that word is that you're paying to get better at something, which means that technically just a $15 flat rate game would count as it, depending on how somebody wants to define it.
Yeah, but again, for our discussion, we're not going to be splitting hairs along those lines.
Yeah,
and like when we talk about pay to win, like, I go back to when I spoke with Ramin about the topic, and he's kind of like my go-to source whenever I have these discussions. And what we kind of settle on is that pay to win, at least at its most basic layer, the one I think a lot of people think about, is can a paying player circumvent the game compared to a free-to-play one? Can they advance faster? Can they do better? Can they earn more? Does paying money in this game legitimately give me an advantage over free players? And this is, again, we're not talking about, I'm buying a game, thereby, I get access to it. What we're talking about, what we're seeing, is this idea that if a free-to-play player is maybe at this level, if a paying player is anywhere above them, that's where we started getting into this gray side of pay to win.
Mm-hmm. Well, even at that, you have, it's not just statistical differences, it's power differences, it's a whole lot of things.
Quality of life differences.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's basically, are you paying for a better experience? And to Thorne's comment that he said there about, spend $10, get the best weapon, become number one PvP. That's where a lot of people, immediately, their heads go to when we use this term pay to win. It's why when we had discussions, cosmetics aren't part of this because there's no gameplay advantage. This game is not multiplayer, so it's free to have microtransactions. But what we've seen, and especially the last 3 years, has been this kind of fundamental shift in what mobile and gacha-based design, even just free-to-play design, has really changed in terms of how their monetization works.
over time we've seen it change, and we also want to explore vaguely all anti-consumer stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to go into real detail on there, but basically all anti-consumer stuff is all grayscale too. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just this game is consumer friendly, this game is not.
Mm-hmm.
It's on a scale from, let's say, 1 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
This one scores a 10, so we'll call it pro consumer. This one scores a 90, so we'll call that one abusive or pay to win or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. But what happens when you get one at 50? And generally the answer is when you get one at 50, it's in the bad scale too. Usually it takes you around. It seems to be like maybe the top 25%, 20%, somewhere in there is where we say is good, and then the latter 75%, the higher 75% is where we consider bad generally.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is that there's plenty of mobile and free-to-play games that they'll be really, really good, pro-consumer and, X, Y, and Z, but then be very pay-to-win, very exploitive with A, B, and C. And a lot of people will argue, oh, it does this good, so who cares if it does this bad? But as we've said, kind of our point for this week's show, it's not a, on and off or black and white. It's these different degrees that have really changed, I think, the face of mobile and free-to-play design.
Which is where you get into the whole, it's just cosmetics argument.
Mm-hmm.
Where, cosmetics is generally the most abusive thing out there. And it is also, when they also combine that with loot boxes and, then they have limited time events and FOMO and all this other stuff. It's like abuse after abuse after abuse after abuse stacked on top of one thing. And it is just cosmetics, but it's just the worst possible thing you could possibly do in any game in stacked on top of each other.
Yeah. And to Thorne's question, there are costumes in Genshin Impact or skins. They were not in the game when I tried it, so I don't know, what the price is or how they've handled it along those lines. But yeah, like the big point about this, and I think what you just said there about FOMO or fear of missing out, has really become almost the driving force for a lot of the changes in mobile and free-to-play design over the last 3 years. And I could easily go into some of my examples now. Do you want to do some of yours or one of your topics first?
I don't have any examples. I do have topics, but what's happened to yours?
Okay. So the big thing that has really changed, and you can see this in kind of, if we compare free-to-play gacha-style games or loot box-driven games of, let's say, 68 years ago, to where things have changed over like the last 2 to 3 years, has been trying to really elevate the design. It's no longer about pay to annoy or fun pain or pay or wait, or it's not about forcing someone to spend money out of inconvenience. Instead, it's about getting them to spend money out of that fear of missing something amazing, something incredible in these games. So when you look at kind of the state of hero collectors or gacha style games now compared to the ones older, did you ever play or do you know the game Marvel Contest of Champions, Shark?
I know that you talk about it a lot.
Yeah. This is one of those games that the monetization is completely embedded into its progression. Like, you literally cannot access 5 and 6 star characters unless you make enough progress in the game. And this is, of course, Marvel, so they have at this point, I think, a few hundred variations of characters. Not only different types, but different star rarities. So it gets very confusing in terms of, oh, if I want a 6 star, which 6 star do I want? what we see today with games like Arknights, Genshin, Guardian Heroes, I'm playing a Punishing Grey Raven right now, is that there are fewer characters, but they're radically more different. It's not just variations of the same attacker or the same spellcaster. It's that this one 6-star is fundamentally different in terms of what they can do compared to everybody else in the game. And when that character shows up, well, if you want that character, you better spend for it because the chance of you getting it otherwise is probably less than 0.1%. And that's not hyperbole, because what they've done is that the drop rates for a lot of modern day gacha games are incredibly low. In Arknights, it is a 2% chance to get a 6-star character. In Genshin, it is a 0.6 chance. It's not even a percent chance of you getting a 5-star. It's less than 1%. And what they've done is that these characters will always come with unique abilities, unique rules. Excuse me. Sorry about that. And it's never a case of, I get this one character, I'm now God tier. It is, do you like strategy A? Well, there's going to be a character who completely synergizes and is the best part of strategy A. But that character, if you don't get it, the whole strategy falls apart. And what Arknights did, and I really love the design of Arknights from a gameplay standpoint, although its monetization can be very annoying, as we've talked about, is that it's all like tower defense with all the heroes being towers. So each character belongs to one of the different classes, and the 5 to 6-star characters will oftentimes break the rules of that class. So you'll have a melee character, the guy that I put on my thumbnail, the one on the right with the bird, he is a melee only character who, if you activate him during combat, he becomes a 3-tile far away range character who also does melee damage at range. I'm not sure that would be considered safely extreme or not.
I think it is.
But he is a 6-star. He's considered one of the better 6-stars in the game. Right before I stopped playing Arknights, they introduced a character who hurts your teammates, but when they hurt them, they gain double damage and double attack speed during the effect of the debuff. And there is literally no other character like that in Arknights at that time. And this is where things have really changed. Because by dealing with smaller pools of characters, they can make them far more distinctive. And then it really comes down to this high-end strategy of, how do I work all these pieces together to build the most badass team or the most badass party or however you want to do it? And that's where that FOMO comes in. Because how these banners work is that once a character gets added into like the general pool, your chance of getting that one specific character in a pool of 20, 30, 40, 50 is going to be minuscule. So you wait for the feature banners, where they now have like a 60% chance of dropping once you get a 6-star. But so the games, well, that's where things get very grayscale. That will probably be the next part that I'll talk about once I'm done with this one. But the issue is that if you don't get that character during that feature gacha, you are in deep trouble if that's your strategy. Because again, what they've done is that it's never one character. You're never going to, none of these games will just say, give me $60, I'll give you the number one character in the game, you'll be God tier. It's basically, if I want to become the best with this specific party, I'm going to need this, this, and this. And if I don't get all three of those parts, I am going to be behind the 8 ball. We're talking about specific, a pay to win in general, Thomas. So, like right now, I was telling Shark about this before we started the show. I was trying out the game Princess Connect, and right now they are doing their special summer gacha, their summer event, and there's a character in that event who is considered basically super S tier. Like, if you build a magic team in Princess Connect, this is the character that you want. But you see, here's the problem. That character is literally only available 3 weeks a year. If you don't get that character during their limited time banner, that's it. You are done for 365 days. And that means 365 days of everybody else having that character, and you're not. And a lot of this kind of FOMO and this kind of design is really tiered toward that. Now, of course, these games offer you free ways of getting currency, and we'll probably be coming back to that many times over the show. But it's still that case of the person with more money has more chances for greatness. And
Yeah.
I can certainly start talking about things from a balancing side, but I won't rest my voice for a few minutes, so I'll throw it over to you.
So, Thomas, it's not just pay to win in general. It's we're talking about how pay to win and just anti-consumer practices as a whole are in a grayscale. You know, there may be a pure black out there. You know, probably something EA made or something, or Take Two, but there's not a pure white that is a commercial game that has succeeded, and there's a reason behind that, and we're not going to get into that here. But the point is none of them are pure. We can't look at things purely black and white. We have to look at it as a scale of gray, and that basically the stuff we would call bad and the stuff we call good are at certain portions of that thing. And, you know, over on the Discord this morning, there was a mishap, I guess you'd call it. And basically, we were talking about this one Pokemon game. I don't even know the name of it. Somebody posted a link to it. I don't even know the name of it. But basically, there was some YouTuber made a video saying that the game wasn't pay to win. Because he was like, yeah, you can pay to get these things, but you can also get them free if you do it this way. And he was, you know, going over all these points and all this other stuff. And the fact is the points he made was solid, but the fact is those were not points that says it was not a pay to win. Those were saying that this is a more healthy, more light colored pay to win game. This was a, you know, light gray pay to win game kind of thing, because, you know, it wasn't super abusive in every way possible. It was minimally abusive, you know. So what he was actually more accurately saying is that this is a more consumer friendly version of the pay to win. Although I would still say that it was not a great model, but compared to a lot of things we see out there, it is, you know, but, you know, that's by comparison. If I were to say on the grayscale, I'd say that game, you know, based off of that video I've seen, I'd say that probably falls around, I don't know, on a scale from 1 to 100, around, if pure white is 0, pure black is 100, I'd say that probably fell over probably around 30, 35, somewhere in there. But we generally see that what we consider to be consumer friendly in the, you know, probably 20, 25 range, you know, and below we're 75, and after we consider anti-consumer. But, you know, there's sort of a point like around 50 where everybody considers it, most people, a vast majority consider it anti-consumer. And then that space between like 50 and 25, people are like, some people are like, yeah, that's bad, and other people are like, no, that's not bad. You know, it's more contested.
Yeah, and again, this is what we were talking about earlier, that it's very easy to split hairs with a lot of the stuff, but it really does fall on that gray scale. Like, I think Thorn or Thomas, who brought this up? whoever brought up Warframe, Thomas did, that Warframe is one of those very weird examples. Like when we talk about, indie successes like Five Nights at Freddy's and Outlast, like the ones that were the exceptions to the rules, like Warframe would very much be on that line. Like it's such its own unique animal when it comes to pay to win and its integration of those mechanics.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, Warframe again is one of those games that you either have played it for hundreds and hundreds of hours, or you loaded it up, you said no, and then never touch it again. Like
Is that part of sunk cost fallacy in that one?
kind of, and just like the nature of it, like it has one of those gameplay loops that you're either all in or not at all wanting to play it. And they've done a really amazing job of expanding it. And probably like a close competitor in that aspect would be like the developer of Genshin Impact, who like they're one of the few mobile games that I've seen that actually releases content expansions to their mobile design. Something is, yeah. Yep, and again, like this is where it gets very tricky and why there is this gray scale. Because what we've seen in a lot of these games is that this side of the game is completely pro-consumer. You can do all this kinds of crazy stuff in this game. You can make all this wonderful progress. But then there's this side where either you must be, rolling in four-leaf clovers and get lucky on every one of your loot boxes or your gotchas, or you better spend a ton of money, or you are not going to make any progress whatsoever.
Yeah, and I want to go back to an example I said before about some of these games that the gameplay is just a complete set of gameplay, and then the way they monetize it is cosmetics, and you get this, it's just cosmetics term thrown around, and then they throw those cosmetics, which are already the most abusive form of monetization. And then they take that and then they throw that into loot boxes, which makes it even more abusive, adds that layer to it. And then they add in, these god awful percentages to it, which makes it even worse. And then then they add in, the fact of the FOMO, the fear of missing out, that you can only get this cosmetic during this time at this point kind of thing. And then to set it all off, even farther, which is already really, really bad, they charge $60 for the game, up front, but before that, and the fact is that's so many levels of wrong. It's not funny. That is, people are, some people are like, it's just cosmetics, it's fine, kind of thing. Where it's not. That is very, very, very black in color. That is, I don't know. What would you say? That's probably like a 85, 90, somewhere in there on the scale. It's really high up there, and it's just because nothing is affected in the core gameplay loop does not mean that it is anywhere close to white.
Yep, and we've said this before about, how people can be pressured into getting these various skins. That, oh, you're just using the default guy or gal. You don't have so-and-so super fantastic hat or this very expensive skin, so you must be some, crappy, weekend warrior player kind of thing.
And kids get bullied in school over it. And those kids either have to deal with traumatizing bullying that will follow them around for the rest of their life. Because once you're traumatized, you don't just get untraumatized. You can never get untraumatized. You can just learn to deal with it. You could get untraumatized if you had a time machine to go back in time, buy the skin so you don't get traumatized. That's the way you get untraumatized right there. Invent time travel, take your money back in time, and then buy the skin. The other way is, they can maybe get the money from their parents. And
Or
if their
steal it.
parents are not willing, then they have to either, suffer through it, or they have to steal.
Mm-hmm.
And if, taking them down the thief, you know, route. And if even if the parents do it, maybe they're a very, very low income family, and that puts the parents in a bad situation, kind of thing, an even worse situation, kind of thing. And even at that, what's going to happen is they're going to release the next set of skins.
There you go.
He's going to need the next set of skins, and they ain't going to do it probably, or they're going to be put in even to worse situation. So like, this is a situation that bleeds heavily into real world when you're dealing with cosmetics. The pay to win stuff that doesn't really bleed into real life. If you want to pay to win, then you pay to win. If you don't, you either deal with it or you go play something else. And there's no like bleed into the real world, where cosmetics on the other hand can bleed really hard into the real world.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, and that kind of just that constant like trickle of new stuff is a very big point about live service and kind of the rise of these kinds of games, is that you can't half-ass it these days. And I want to talk more about Marvel's Avengers versus Genshin Impact probably later on in our video or in our stream today. But what we've seen, and again, like going back to Warframe, is that you can't just keep throwing purchases at the player. You need to give them a reason to spend. Is it an exclusive skin? Is it a brand new weapon? In Warframe, the various frames that you can either craft or buy are essentially new classes. So you have a summoner type frame, you have a sniper frame, heavy sword, whatever. But what they do is they add in new stuff. There's new story missions, there's new gameplay modes, there's new things that you can use this stuff on. And I kind of really want to talk about balance in these games and, demystifying the whole, you can make progress as a free player, but do you have anything else you want to bring up about cosmetics?
Not at the moment, I don't think.
Okay. Another very big myth, besides, cosmetics are, fair game because they don't affect gameplay, is the whole, if I'm a free player, I can make progress if I'm good. And you'll see defenders of these games will argue to, day in and day out, saying, I didn't pull any 6-star gacha, and I made it all the way to the end of my game. You're just horrible at the game. Why don't you just spend money and get better at it? And a lot of the kind of, again, like more modern kind of gacha games are very involved in terms of their gameplay. There is strategy involved. You actually have to think, as opposed to just saying, here's all my 5 stars, put them on a team, I'll win every time. This is one of the reasons why I really like Arknights, because you have to design your teams based on what characters you have, what powers they have, and then what the state of the map is. Like, if a map has a lot of pits, I won't bring a character who can either push or pull enemies, and I get free kills. And that is a very interesting strategy to make use of. Just putting all my 6 stars on a map doesn't guarantee victory. And you can, in a lot of these games, punch above your weight class if you know what you're doing. In Punishing Gray Raven right now, that's kind of like more of an action-style gacha game, the game is recommending my party be at like power level like 3400 in order to have an easy time on these maps. And right now, I have a character who's only level 2000 or power level 2000, and I'm winning very easily. But that's because, as some of you may know, I play a lot of action games. But if you're not good, there really isn't anything else you can do other than to spend money. But you see, here's where things get very crafty. Even if you are good at these games, there is always, and I mean always, 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 going to be a difficulty spike. There will be at some point a map, an enemy, a challenge, whatever, that skill alone is not going to do it. And that's not
Well, there was
hyperbole.
actually a thing done on that. I think it was a GDC talk or something, to where they were talking about this, and they were, it was a whole lot of bullcrap what they were spewing, but there was some useful information that I grabbed from it. And basically, they were talking about how, through testing and everything, they figured out that quote unquote players enjoyed having spikes in the gameplay, to where it was, we go through a few maps and then we get to a spike, and then we can't get past that spike, so we struggle to get past that spike, and then you get past it and you feel good, aka you get dopamine release, and then you go on for a few maps and you're just feeling really good from keep on getting dopamines, and then spike.
Crush you.
And see, the thing isn't that it's not making you feel good. The thing is they're putting this in there so that you're getting sporadic points of dopamine. You get the dopamine for this section, and then they're like, "Yep, you've had enough dopamine for now. We don't want you to enjoy the game that much," cutting you off, and then make you work really hard to get your next dopamine rush, and then we'll let you feed on that for a little while, and then we'll cut you off, and then force you over and over that thing. And it's not that players like it. It's that they, players are easily manipulated when they have that sporadic dopamine rush.
And this is something Ramin has spoken about at length, with how these game developers, I think, call them their drug dealers. They're manipulating the chemicals in your brain to try and get you to spend more money or play for more time, and it is highly manipulative. So this is the point about these kinds of games, is that if you are god tier at them, you can punch above your weight limit very, very easily. Like, I've actually not even done a gacha pool in Punishing Grey Raven yet for a new character, because I've been using the 3 basic free-to-play ones and making a lot of progress. Until there's one level in particular, it's stage 5-8 of the campaign, that the enemy that you fight in this level, I literally did 0 points of damage. I mean, I was watching, I hit the enemy with my ult, nothing was done. Like, the enemy's super armor is boosted to the point that if you can't at least do X amount of damage, you literally can't hurt this character. And my only option at that point, if I, wasn't a good player, was I would have to start rolling for new weapons and rolling for new characters and spending all my resources trying to upgrade the characters that I have, as opposed to, saving them for the S tiers that I want. And the only reason I may have passed that mission was because I had an AI, someone else like join my game kind of thing, who was 10 levels above me and completely crushed that fight. And then guess what happened as soon as I was done with that battle? The next fight was ridiculously easy, and I could be with my party that was like 2,000 strength below what they expected you to be. And to Thorne's comment, I'm seeing a lot more in PvE, with games like Arknights, Assert Lane. Like, a lot of these games do have PvP elements to them, but they are kind of experimenting more with a bulk of their content being PvE. Genshin Impact would be another example of this. And another aspect of this kind of scaling and this kind of monetization, or this kind of grayscale, is the idea of, a gacha rock, paper, scissors system. Now, Shard, you know what rock, paper, scissors is, right?
Oh, I've never dealt with that. But
Mm,
before we go on, I want to address Thorn's other point
mm,
about the hunt for whales. I mean, when you get to those spikes,
mm-hmm.
it's to encourage the whales to pay to get something to overcome this spike, and then you have the same thing, just without the weight.
Yeah.
It's pay to get over that spike weight.
And then, of course, new characters become that fear of missing out. And for somebody who, has to have, 99 of 99 characters, all
The
unlocked.
collectors.
Yep. If you miss that one, again, if a character is literally only available for 3 weeks a year, and, there's only 2 days left in this banner, you don't have it, somebody is going to spend big to try and get that character.
Mm-hmm.
So, the balance side, what we're talking about is that you'll have characters broken down to various classes. The warrior may be good against the magic user. The magic user will be good against the range. Again, like Arknights fits that mold. But what they'll do is that as you play through, they'll start to introduce higher quality versions of those characters. And there will always come a point where your counter will not be able to work. So that in a normal game, if I have my paper unit, Shark has a scissors, he's going to win. But if I have a 6-star ultra rare paper unit who does 5 times more damage as scissors, and Shark only has a 2-star character, it doesn't matter if Shark has the perfect team-wise counter to me, I am going to stomp him into the dust. It's something for RTS fans you may remember from Age of Empires Online, that they tried to do that and the community did not respond. And what we're seeing in these kinds of games, again, is that idea of, hey, if I want to build a team out of so-and-so, but if I need this character to kind of bring it all together, well, I need to spend big to have any chance of getting it. And
This whole topic has made me think about my last game, Chromasia, because I mean, you could literally do that in there because, like, you could go and level up your paper unit up to like level 50 kind of thing, and you could go fight a level 10, scissors, and you would one shot it.
Yeah. See, I told everyone Chromasia was pay to win, and you didn't believe me. But this is where we get to that kind of balance. That, okay, you may be able to get really far on 3-star or common characters, but the difference in how these characters scale is basically like, if you can watch my hands, like a common character would start here, and then through lots and lots of resources and grinding maps and so on, they'll go up to here. But an S-rank character will probably start here, and with far fewer resources, we'll be able to get that much more powerful. And like with the Arknights example, I could get, common characters to the point where they compete stat-wise with the 6-stars. But, my camera just kind of faded out there. But the amount of resources I would need to put in would basically bankrupt my free-to-play account in terms of in-game resources. And you see, that's where we get into that subtle manipulation. Because as somebody who's really good at some of these games, I need to spend less. But as a free-to-play player, and as somebody who tries to watch their, their spending each month, I know I can't just say to myself, okay, I'm just going to put $300 on this game. I have to be very focused on what I build and what I go for. Because some people...
You got it wrong. You can't put $300 in on it. You got to put $3,000 every month.
Yep.
Do it now.
Right now?
Get out your credit card, your phone, everything, do it right now.
Should I put my credit card on my camera right now so people can see it just to be on the safe side?
Yes, just to be on the safe side.
And it is very manipulative like this. And the thing about this, and this is another point that we kind of need to kind of hang this discussion on. These conversations that we're having, these systems and this manipulation, it's not stupid design. It's not lazy design. You'll see, someone like Angry Joe go on like a ranty tirade when he plays like a mobile or free to play game. Saying, why do they do this? Oh, they're so stupid. It's not stupidity. It is psychology. It is
It's
manipulation.
smart
Yes.
it's very smart in a manipulative, evil way.
Yeah, and like Ron, me and I joke, like if both of us went to the dark side, we could design the most manipulative, psychologically draining mobile game you have ever seen. Like we could bankrupt families with what we know about how this stuff works, and then we would launder all the money through Neon Continuum. But
I could join you in on that, and we'd even top that.
mm-hmm. But the point about this is that these systems work. There is no denying it. And when we look at games like Arknights, Assert Lane, Genshin Impact, and so on, they pull in a lot of money. And here's another example, then I'm going to rest my voice again for a few minutes. Another thing that we're seeing are double gacha games. Because one gacha wouldn't be enough to earn all the money, but you have to double it. So you have games like Punishing Grey Raven and Guardian Heroes. Guardian Heroes, from a gameplay standpoint, is probably one of my favorites. It's like a free-to-play, old-school Legend of Zelda game. But what they do is that not only do you have all the characters, and you have higher quality characters, your 5 stars, but every character has a corresponding 5-star weapon that is not only unique to them, but it completely changes the properties of their attacks. So whenever the banner comes around, you have to roll on double banners in order to get everything for this character. So it's basically like probably less than a tenth of a percent for some people to get the character and weapon that they want. And Grey Raven does that as well, but I haven't, gone down that rabbit hole yet.
Yeah, and we find that there's many different ways to free to play, but there's or even pay to win or anti-consumer. There's all these different ways, and it doesn't have to be a multiplayer game. It doesn't have to be anything. I mean, the only thing it has to be is a game to a very limited bar on that one too, because I mean there can be some pretty non-game games out there that monetize the heck out of everything. And the big legal reason why they are able to get away with a lot of this bad stuff, and no government has attempted to stop them until now, is because what they're doing is technically not illegal, even though they're running casinos, because you're buying their currency and then you're gambling that currency, and that currency can never turn back into your currency.
And don't forget, a lot of these games give you that currency as well. Because, I mean, if they give you the currency, surely it's not pay to win. But
it's not gambling either, apparently.
But of course, what we see is that, yes, they're going to give you, like, maybe once a week they'll give you 100 currency, but it may cost you 1,500 currency for that pool. So, once again, it's that case of a paying player can circumvent so much of the time that a free-to-player can do it. Like, again, like, with something like Princess Connect or some of the other ones that I played, like, a lot of my gacha pools and, like, my big push is usually the first 2 to 3 weeks of playing these games, because that's when I get the bulk of my free currency. But once you get, like, months into these games, if you're a free player, you are going to be scavenging like a vulture for every point of currency to get that 10 pool. Because
generally what they do is they set it up on a level system or something along that lines, and they'll give you equal amounts for every level, but every level is harder and harder and farther apart to get, and then they don't have the EXP to go up as high because they base the EXP ramp on you paying to get stuff, and then when you pay to get that stuff, then you can just naturally progress. But when you don't pay, you just run these walls, and so as a paying player, you get more free currency than you do as a free player because you're playing the EXP game that they want you to play by paying for it.
Oh, yes. And for a lot of these games that are primarily PvE focused, they will oftentimes have a PvP system in place that earns you more jewels or more premium currency. But this is another big point about these kinds of games. Like, ones that are more competitively focused. That I remember I got into a little spat with somebody on Twitter. Like, she was like the head of like one of these major companies. And she was trying to talk again about legitimacy of like competitive tournaments in like mobile-based games. And she said, well, all of our top competitors in this tournament didn't have to spend 1 cent to get in because they're the top players. And I asked her, how much have they spent lifetime in your game? And she never responded to that. And you see, that's kind of the point that about these games, that people who are smart at them, they know not to spend $10,000 in these games. But they may spend like $500 just perfectly to give them the most advantages. And then
generally you spend it at the beginning, and that's where you get the most advantage.
Yeah.
You spend it on day one, and I've seen in games I've played, I've seen people spend quite big on day one, and then they're massive on day one, and then they're just on the gravy train for all the free stuff after that because they get the top rank.
Yep.
Over and over and over again, and then they reward you for the top rank, and you get the keep on getting these
more
huge rewards, which keeps you at the top. Where others, they'll spend 5, 10, 15 times that, but they won't spend it in the first week. They'll spend it in the first, or even on day one. They'll spend it like 2-3 months down the road, and they're fighting to be way behind that one person.
Yeah, like in Marvel Contest of Champions, I watched this guy, and the last time we spoke about this topic, I brought him up, that I watched this YouTuber who, in the span of 1 week, he made probably a good 6 months to a year's worth of progress in the game to a casual player. And he did that because he knew exactly what systems to go into, what events to do, what to spend on in terms of his resources. He knew the perfectly optimized route, and he got lucky with his gacha pool as well. But he was able to, again, do a 6 months of content in 7 days. Or I'm sorry, I think it was even just 5 days. And this is where a lot of people will throw up this topic of, it's free to play. Well, if you are beyond God tier and know the game inside and out, yeah, you can probably get really far. But
most of those people have paid to win, to get to know their game, and then later they can do a free one.
Yeah.
And you really can't say they're just a purely free player, because they were. They were a free player on that account, but on another account, they probably spent $5,000 and they got all this kind of stuff. Maybe they spent $300,000 and they got all that. They used that to gain knowledge, and then once they got that knowledge, they did the challenge on a new account, and they got so far and with a free account.
Oh, you just brought up a point I have to also clarify. If you watch a lot of mobile YouTubers and streamers who play these games, what they will typically do is, like, for the first week of playing, they will, erase all their data and do new accounts again and again, because a new account will always be given, one free S tier unit. And what they'll do is they'll keep re-rolling until they get that top character. You know, that one character who will take an account from here to here. And they'll keep doing it again and again because they know that if they can start with that character, everything else becomes easier for them. And it's far easier to get these characters when you're brand new, as opposed to, you know, again, just going to gacha hell and spending thousands of dollars to hopefully get that one character.
Mm.
And again, you'll see this, like, guarantee. Pick a mobile game, pick, you know, a well-known streamer or YouTuber who plays that game, and they will have a video of them just re-rolling entire accounts just to get that one character.
Maybe we should go more into gray stuff, you know, middle gray kind of thing, because we definitely talked about the end, but like gray stuff. I mean, there's not very many like middle tier gray stuff around there because like stuff usually goes, you know, towards one extreme or the other. You don't often see this stuff sort of in the middle, but there is stuff sort of in the middle. And that Pokemon game they looked at the other day looked like that. Looked at this morning, where you know, like it's pay to win, but like if you do a ton of upgrades and everything, it's not giving you a big statistical value. It's just I think it's like if you upgrade by like I think like 20 levels or something, it's giving you only like a 50% increase for 20 levels. And that you can get 20 levels for free within the first week of playing. So, and like the max level I think was 30, I think they said. And you know, when you go from 20 to 30, I think it's only like a 10 or 15% increase in damage. So like it's not a massive difference, and you could still get to 30 fairly easily as a free player. But that doesn't mean it's not pay to win. But it does mean that it's a more consumer friendly because it's not so hard in, you know, it's not giving you FOMO, at least not that I've seen in that video. I could be wrong because I don't know. I never played the game. But from what I've seen in there was no FOMO. There was no, like, you know, random characters or anything like that. So you got what you want in theory whenever you wanted it. It was just a, you know, level difference kind of thing. And that level difference had a fairly minor impact, and it was fairly easy to gain kind of thing. So like for free, at least starting out.
Yep.
You know, of course that can change very, very rapidly as you go. But seeing how like 30 is the max level, I mean, like you at least get one character probably pretty early, you know, max level. It's a question on what happens to your second character, how many characters you need, and all that kind of talk. But like, it's more consumer friendly than the latter. But like, more doesn't mean that it's good. It would sit probably somewhere, like my guess, probably somewhere around the 50 range. You know.
Yeah, but like you said,
there we go.
That you can make progress to a point. And that's like another big point about this kind of balance, or kind of like how this long term will play out. That as a free player, you are able, again, if you're good enough, to go very far. But as we've said, with these spikes, with kind of the, you know, what are the best characters in the game, that as a free player in a lot of these hero collectors, I know I literally cannot get everything without spending money. and I don't want to spend money because again, I don't have lots and lots of money to be spending. Like I can't, tell my family, if I'm barely making it right now, that can I spend, $5,000 to get this very expensive character in a game? They're not going to work. And
Oh, but Josh, you have all this sweet YouTube money.
oh yes,
I mean, you're making at least a bare minimum of 2 cents per video. I mean, you can afford $5,000.
yeah. What I need are those super whales that come in to watch people who spend. I need somebody to say, "Hey, I'll give you $20 million to roll on this. If anyone wants to feed the addiction, let me know."
Yeah, I had somebody come into a stream one time. I think I was on Twitch during that time, and I was playing like Hearthstone, and he was like, I want to see you open packs. I was like, well, I don't have any open. He's like, well, buy some and open them. I was like, I can't afford to buy any right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh.
Yep. And from a balancing standpoint with this, that what we've seen, and this is where, like, as we've said, like, this grayscale comes in. That if we were to look at free-to-play games 5, 8 years ago, they would just let you buy for power. Like, if you remember the free-to-play Battlefield game and a lot of those kinds of, like, first and second generation mobile games, it was basically, here's the top character in the game. It has a $100 price tag. I give you $100, I'm now the best player in the game. And what we've seen is that they're making it more, in a way, it's more fair to free players today by kind of making it less fair for everybody else. And what I mean by that is that you cannot just spend for power in these games. As in, like I said, there is no price tag that you can buy the best character or the best weapon. Everyone must go through the gotchas or through the banners. So by setting these banners so damn low in terms of their drop rates, in a weird way, it's kind of fair that percentages are percentages. That if, or they should be, if the developers adhere to their own rules.
Yeah, if the developers are not, put an AI bot behind it and just only drop what they think that you need to drop in order to keep on playing.
Yep. So
I know games that do that.
Yep. So, like, for instance, in Arknights, if you want a 6-star character according to their stats, it is a 2% drop chance per roll to get that. If you want to do Genshin Impact, a 5-star, again, is a 0.6% chance. And ideally, again, there's no data to say otherwise, that somebody who spends $10,000 in Genshin Impact has as much of a percentage drop chance per roll as somebody who may only spend $0 or $15. And we have seen cases where that lucky person who just loads up the game gets a 5-star on their first pull. It's astronomically slim, but it can happen. And again, this is where people will kind of argue that kind of quality to it. But as we've said, a lot of where this grayscale comes in is over the course of the entire play. Yes, you may get that lucky character, but 50 levels from now, when you need, an S-rank fire character or an S-rank green character, and you don't have them, what are you going to do?
Yeah. And we can look at two similar examples that are rather famous that, and see where they're kind of at in the grayscale kind of thing. And those two things would be like Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering Arena.
Mm-hmm.
Now then, they're both CCGs, they're both card games, they both have card packs in there. Well, one of them has card packs, the other one has loot boxes. And this is where we kind of get into the delineation. Where Hearthstone has loot boxes, where it gives you 5 cards, one of which will be an uncommon that they renamed a rare to trick you into thinking you're getting more value than you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 4 other cards are random, supposedly,
Mm-hmm.
but I believe that Hearthstone is one of those games that have that AI behind there that are manipulating the odds, and that the AI is giving you even really bad common cards until it figures that you need a good common card.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll give you, and then whenever it decides to give you uncommon named a rare, it'll probably give you one that's completely useless to you, but you feel good because you got a rare slash uncommon and that. And they manipulate that and everything, and it's so bad. But then you look at Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering gives you set drop rates for everything, and I believe it's even across the board for each rarity. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure on that. And the packs have I think 8 or 10 or 12 cards in them, and it gives you a real rare in every pack. It gives you 2 uncommons in every pack, the fake rares for Hearthstone. And it gives you 1 full for every pack, and it gives you, I think, 6 or 7 commons in every pack, and it's the same in every pack. You get the same rarity, everything is guaranteed, and there's not really any manipulation in there to what you get, kind of thing, because I believe that the odds are even to get one rare over another rare. So your odds are just as equal. You don't have to, this rare is not 0.6 and this rare is 8 out of 30 that you can get, and they're not manipulating those odds. As far as I know, they're all even. And that's just one aspect that just makes Magic the Gathering consumer friendly, because it is Magic the Gathering in that terms is just like the physical Magic the Gathering. Which the physical Magic the Gathering goes through the Gambling Commission, which the Gambling Commission, they probably didn't have it that way at the beginning, but the Gambling Commission probably required them to change it to be that way for them to be legal to be sold to kids, because you can't sell kids gambling stuff.
Yep.
And, the thing with that, the whole, currency thing, the currency gets you past the laws. They can do whatever they want. That's the reason why Raid Shadow Legends is basically an online casino and is able to go completely away with it because of that little, thing in the law that is worse than a casino. Because imagine if you went to a casino, you went to pay to get tokens in there, but you could never get, you could go in there and win all you wanted, but you could never cash out your tokens. Your tokens were stuck in there forever, and you just had to keep on gambling until you lost all your money. And you could buy more to lose more, but you could never actually win, which is pretty much what Raid Shadow Legends is.
So what you're saying is you can check out, but you can never leave?
Yeah.
Yeah. And with these kinds of games, you can just as we've said, with the Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering example. 1 second, water is running, it's distracting me. There we go. But with the example of this, that Magic is still it's better, but it's still on that grayscale. And it is tough, as we said, for a lot of people will have these different places they'll stay. They'll put their flag down, so how much they'll accept the pay to win or the free to play or just the monetization of a game in general. This is why we had that whole discussion about cosmetics. There are people who are if as long as it's cosmetics I have to spend money on, I can play this game no matter how annoying or how frustrating it is. Somebody else may say, well, the cosmetics, if I can't get them for free at some point, I'm going to refuse to play it. And the problem again with all these discussions is that it's very hard for some people to put a pin into whether or not where this game falls on that grayscale.
That's exactly the reason why there is a grayscale.
Yep.
It's not black and white. One thing is not as bad as another because they share one thing in common. Because I mean, the only way they would be that way is if that one thing was the entire thing. Mm-hmm. Because then they would be perfectly equal to each other. But if you compare that one thing to this other thing that's different, then it's no longer at the same spot on the scale. And through development of my current game, Neon Continuum, the word of the day that I don't think I've said in a while, but like through it, I have tried everything I can to shift farther and farther towards the light side of the scale. I'm using the light side of the force, if you were. But the thing is I cannot go all the way white. I cannot go to zero. And the reason why, there's several reasons why. Number one, if you go all the way white to pure white, your game will not make any money. You'll fail commercially, and that'll be it for you. And
unless, of course, again, you're doing a retail game where there is that initial buy-in.
Even retail game, because the fact is a retail game, you'd have to list it as $15 and not $14.99. Because that's puts you into the grayscale.
Mm-hmm.
Putting that 99 cents at the end puts you in the grayscale. But the thing is if you don't do that on Steam, your sales are going to plummet. Because you could list your game for $14.99 and list it for $15, and I guarantee you that you will have a world's more sales at $14.99 than you will for $15. Matter of fact, I bet you your $15 sales would be pretty dang close to the same you would get if you charged $19.99. That one penny is almost like $5 worth of charging on Steam, and it's ridiculous. It's stupid, and consumers are programmed now to deal with that. So if you do not put that amount of darkness in your game, look to fail, kind of thing. So you can't go all white. You can't go all white. You can go very, very white, but you can't. If you go all the way, you're in trouble. I remember somebody telling me not too long ago about a game that went all white and just went with the like $15 or whatever, and they got crushed. And then not long after that, they changed their price to $14.99, and then they just soared up through the skies just for that one change. Just by lowering the price by 1 cent was the difference between them horribly failing at launch versus them succeeding wildly after launch when it's harder to succeed.
Yeah.
And it's stupidly broken, and you cannot go 100% white without crushing your studio. But the thing is I can't even go to the 1%. But I am going as close as I can to that without submitting failure. And it's all about pushing the limits to how white I can go to make it as consumer friendly as possible without just completely killing any chance I have for the game succeeding, because then it's all for nothing. Because what's if you build the greatest white consumer game ever that doesn't do anything, what's that going to do? That's not going to keep you making games. It's not going to support you. It's not going to support the work you did over the last 3 years or whatever. It's not going to change the industry either because it make it a better place because nobody's ever heard of your game because your game failed horribly.
Yep.
But the way to change the industry is get something that is very much on the white side, as white as you can get it, that still succeeds wildly. And if you can get a wild success that is very, very much on the white side kind of thing, then you can inflict change into the industry. And that's what I'm doing. And if I had to put Neon Continuum on a scale, I think I'd probably hit around 10. On the thing. It's definitely not a 1 or a 0. Like a $14.99 game that's just there. That's 1%. I'm not able to get that far, but it's also not like Magic the Gathering, where I said Magic the Gathering right now is probably around I don't know, a 20-ish, where Hearthstone on the other hand is probably around like 75, 80, 90, somewhere deep into the black. And it's really hard because you got to make your own monetization model, and that is a whole task on its own.
I have one more example. This will be kind of like my final point for our discussion for today. And that goes back to what we were saying earlier about like something like Marvel's Avengers. And one of the lessons I think a lot of major developers have learned is that the old ways of monetization are not working anymore. And if you remember, last year, or was it the year before that? Again, 2020 has been a very weird year, I think, for everyone. But whenever Marvel's Avengers came out, it was going to compete with Genshin Impact. And I am very sure that more people know who Marvel's Avengers are than they know what Genshin Impact was. But the Avengers game was designed very much around that old way of thinking in terms of monetization. We're just going to lump all this stuff on top of a single player driven game, and I'm sure people would be confused enough to spend money on skins and experience upgrades and whatever. And it did not work. Like, when you look at Marvel's Avengers, like, there are people who are defending this game online saying it's a good game, and it may be a good single player driven game, but that is completely buried on top of all the decisions to kind of force the monetization from a AAA developer.
Isn't that the one you played?
For like an hour, yeah.
Yeah, and I would say it's not a good single player either because like it's retarded. Like Hulk fights, generic basic enemy number 1, hits him 10 times before he knocks him 2 feet over to the ground. It's like that's not Hulk.
Yeah,
and that's Blaze in Street Fighter. Blaze in Street Fighter might even be stronger than Hulk. Maybe we can have that face off. Blaze versus Hulk. Who will win in raw strength? I think it'll be Blaze.
Yeah, but the point about that is that you look at Genshin Impact, and this was a game that it is designed to be a free to play hero collector gacha focused game. And it did more for that gameplay than who did it? Who was the studio? Crystal Dynamics did Marvel's Avengers, that they could have ever done with a far better license, with, I'm sure, far more money and clout behind them than the studio did. And this is, again, where we've seen this evolution. That if you want people to spend, you have to give them something of value to spend on. Or, I should say, the chance of getting something of value. Like, I could not imagine anyone who played Marvel's Avengers, dying to spend money in that game. but I saw a lot of people empty their bank accounts to get, the first 5-star character in Genshin Impact. I mean, I think I watched a streamer who he spent so much money his bank can't his bank put a possible theft alert on his card because he spent so much on this game in such a short period of time. But again, the point of where this evolution and this grayscale of monetization has come from is that developers have learned that if you want to get people to spend the big bucks, you have to make the product worth it. And like with Genshin Impact, with Warframe, and with some of these other examples, like these games aren't just fire and forget kind of experiences. They grow. There is new content added. There is new modes. Again, like Warframe, like I said earlier in the stream, Warframe is that crazy exception that they release expansion level content for this game like almost every year, every 6 months. They've added in, guild houses. They've added in a new ship versus ship combat. They've added an open world exploration to this game. No other free-to-play developer would have done anything like this at that same time. Probably most of them aren't doing that now. I think the only exception would again be the Genshin Impact, and I think they have another game, Honkai Impact, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's Honkai Impact.
Yeah, Honkai Impact. And like we've said, the reason why these games work is that they're leaning more towards, the lighter side of the grayscale. Because I think despite what publishers and developers may think, or some of them may think, consumers have gotten, I think, a little bit wiser in this aspect. Because they see it in these games that do a better job. Why should I play your game that is very manipulative when I see it done better in something like Azur Lane or Arknights or Genshin? Why should I spend anything on Marvel's Avengers when, again, Genshin Impact came out that same time, and a mobile game with like no true brand awareness completely crushed the House of Disney.
Mm-hmm. And while these games are, a lot of these games are more consumer friendly and everything, the thing is they're also making more money than the old versions.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're able to monetize even more people because they have a better reputation because they're not completely scamming people. And they're also able to monetize everybody harder because there's more stuff that you can buy, and not everything is linked to this is going to make you better kind of thing. So like people are like they may spend a lot on this and then they realize, oh, that's not the strategy I want to go with. I want to spend it all on this, and then figure out, oh, well, actually I want to go with a different strategy and spend it on that. And then they're like, I've got all the strategies except for this one now. So let me spend a lot on this one. Now I have all of them. And then they release another one that is better than one of those strategies or adds to one of the strategies. So they buy that, and then they just keep on buying everything versus the old style where it's like, that's the top thing. Give me that. Buy it. Done. Forget about it. So they're getting so many more purchases from people who are buying, and then they're getting more people buying because they're more consumer friendly.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I threw a few bucks at some of the games that I played, like very little purchases just to see or just to like give a little bit back. And again, it is a far different market today than it was 4 years ago. And for every developer watching this, I know a lot of people watching this live right now, I think because we're competing with the Olympics, but for people watching this record right now, if you are designing either a mobile game or a free-to-play game, anything along these lines, you need to think about this grayscale. And you need to be more on the lighter side than on the darker side. Even if those elements in the past have made tons of money. Like we said, the whole, fun pain, that was like a term thrown around a lot 8 years ago. And, people couldn't just stop talking about, oh, we need to make this game so annoying to play so people will spend more money and then we'll be rich. If a game tried to pull that today, it would probably be dead in a month. Because why would you want to go back to that as a consumer?
Yeah. And the are you sure they're just playing in the watching the Olympics and not playing in the Olympics?
Huh? Hopefully, maybe we have a few Olympic people watching us who watch these streams.
Do it a black foot.
Oh
Do a
yeah.
barrel roll.
Mm-hmm. And like there was an Ubisoft. Like again, like the major publishers are horrible these days when it comes to their free to play offerings. Because they're still thinking that they can get away with the same stuff 5 years ago. And they don't know, about games like Genshin, like Arknights, and so on. And I was surprised that we haven't seen more games follow Genshin Impact style. There is this mobile game that I played that has some very beautiful art. I can't remember the name of it. It's kind of like in the Epic 7 category. Oh, no. But again, the quality has grown. And branding is not as important as having a great game. Like, there are so many Marvel, like, mobile rip-offs and spin-offs and all these other games that they just look horrible to play. And they're going to get people just on the license alone. But what we're seeing are these games that have either no brand awareness, they're either original properties, or they're based off of an anime, or, something that wouldn't be as big here as it would be in Japan, do amazingly well because of their gameplay.
So here's a question for you. Where do you think Genshin Impact would land on the scale?
Ooh. That I don't know, because they've changed and they've added so much over the last 2 years that I don't know where it would be. Like
Well,
when
based off of when you last played.
yeah, if I were to go with like month one of it, uh, in terms of gameplay, I would definitely put it on like the lower number, like more on the later side, maybe 30, 40, somewhere around there. But
I was
again,
going to say about 25.
it's hard to tell because I didn't get far enough to see kind of what the mid to late systems do.
Mm-hmm.
But like, here's a question. I'm going to throw one over to you. Oh well, unfortunately you didn't play Warframe, but like Warframe, it's so weird. Like, on one hand, it is heavily monetized. Like, everything and anything in that game has a price tag to it. But everything and anything can be unlocked through sheer playing and getting more stuff to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's again, it's such I've bugged them time and time again to get them on for a cast, and they've not done that. But I would love to talk to somebody who's worked on Warframe about that game.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I'm doing with Neon Continuum is like everything in the game is accessible for free. There is no paywalls, which paywalls are definitely one of those things where you're going to the black and you don't want that, but like everything is obtainable for free. The only thing that you cannot quote unquote buy for free is just bulk.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy a starter deck or a starter or a booster pack for free, off of your just free currency kind of thing. But if you want a big box of them kind of thing, you're going to have to pay money for that.
Mm-hmm.
Which does to a point give you guaranteed odds because you're getting, when you buy a whole box, something that only comes like 3 or 4 in a box, you're going to get 3 or 4 of them, where you could buy like single packs and you could buy like $2 or $3 worth of single packs and never get those cards because somebody else got them before you.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
And
but like the the big way that I think the game will earn money, and my goal is not that they're going to be buying packs or anything. They're going to be buying more free currency. They're going to want more of what you already get, for free, and there's no quote unquote paid currency. It's just you pay for you either buy stuff straight out or you buy more free currency. And but that economy wise puts a strain on me, because now in order to do that, now I have to have stuff that people want to buy for free.
Yep.
And I have to have enough of it that they want to buy so that they can exhaust all their free stuff and still have a lot of stuff that they really, really want. And I got to do all that while still not cutting, how much they get stuff for free to an absurd low number. I mean, they still have to have a decently amount of free stuff. And getting a quantity of really good stuff is really, really hard when you're on a tight indie budget.
Yep. And again, this is why a lot of these mobile games are very challenging to keep supporting, because you can't just, like in an Arknights or a Genshin Impact, just say, we're going to create a new character who is just like this character, but maybe instead of a man, it's a woman. No. Like, they have to make each and every individual character 100% unique from somebody else. And not only does that take time in terms of art, but guess what? It takes time to design that. It's not, again, a case of where a lot of people were arguing about cosmetics. Just throw it, throw 10 artists at it and they'll just come with all this stuff. No. Like, when they create a new character in Genshin or Arknights or Punishing, that character has to legitimately bring something new to the table. Because that's what is driving their audience and that's what's driving their economy. Because if you release a character who's just like so-and-so, why would I care? Why would I want to roll on that banner and give you my credit card number?
Yeah, it seems like the newer style of mobile games have actual game designers on staff. Where the other ones just had therapists and spreadsheets.
And gambling experts.
Well, that they would also be therapists, but different kinds of therapists.
There's another one that I saw a lot of people really like, Alchemy Stars, which unfortunately my phone can't play, which is very much like that Grindstone game, but with the whole gotcha layer and hero collector and optimization on top of that. And again, like we've said, like, these designs, like, from a mechanic standpoint, they're really good. Like, stuff like Arknights and Genshin Impact, like, there is some good gameplay here. But, like we've said, it's all about balancing that grayscale. That, yes, you have to earn money, obviously, if you want to keep these games going. But if you try the slash and burn mentality, your game's going to fail.
Yep.
Yeah, but we are right about at the end. I think that's all I want to say, and we're over 90 minutes in. So, any final thoughts from you, Shark?
Was there anything in that list I gave you in our pre-show that I have not covered?
Let me see. No compare to win. Grayscale anti-consumerism, less abusive. Things on. I don't think so. For all this abuse, how any commercial game may be considered as pay to win. Any game you own, you pay to do better in the game. We've talked about that. You talk about the future monetization. I think that kicked things a little too hard there. I think that could be its own topic. Because I think we could probably spend another 30 minutes to an hour on like what we see as kind of like future trends.
I know one I want to talk about. The why we should view things on a grayscale instead of just black and white. We've already talked about this, but
Mm-hmm.
I want to add some more clarifications into it because a lot of people seem to, even though there's all this difference in there, a lot of people want to draw lines in the sand and say everything on this side of this line is good, everything
Mm-hmm.
on this side of the line is bad. Fight me about it, and it's getting really, really bad. And it if something's not done about it, if we don't change our way of thinking as gamers as a whole, is going to become just like politics,
Mm-hmm.
to where you have one side leaning completely in one direction, the extremists in one direction, you have the extremists in the other directions. People are going to stab each other with knives because you think their game is pay to win or not pay to win or whatever, and it's just going to elevate to such an extreme. And we've already literally seen people getting stabbed in the gut because of games
Mm-hmm.
with a knife. So like we need to really kind of go with this grayscale and not black and white, and because if we stick to that,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to go so extreme over time, and it's going to get really, really bad, and I really do not want to
Yeah.
see gaming go in that direction.
Yeah. And like for myself, again, like Benjamin's comment, and hi Benjamin, thanks for coming on as we're nearing the end here. That I prefer buying and owning my games. I know that may be a strange concept to maybe some of the younger people who may be watching this. But like the whole, Netflix for games idea, like that does not appeal to my sensibilities as somebody who buys and has a huge collection of titles. And
Yeah, the reason why they're like that is because they've been conditioned by other people and by their phones to want that,
yeah.
because it's what they're used to.
And his other point is another really big one that we didn't touch on. That I think I'll just say this very briefly. That's another big concern that for a lot of these live service games, it is either do or die. Either the game does ridiculously well and gets supported, or it goes away and all the money you spend in that game goes away too. And you'll see YouTubers and streamers, they'll latch onto this and they'll say, so and so game is dying, so and so game is dead, this killed the mobile industry and so on. But it is a legitimate concern, and it, again, like game preservation is one of my bread and butter topics. I could talk about this one for hours on end. But
Yeah, I know that, with my game that I'm working on, I've definitely, addressed this and everything, and I hope that it succeeds
mm-hmm,
very, very well, since I'm definitely going towards the lighter side of the market, as light as I can on the consumer friendly, going as
mm-hmm,
consumer friendly as I can. And the thing is I figured that no, since my game is very low impact on server costs, right? That
mm-hmm,
one server can service a lot of people, kind of thing, because there's most of the heavy stuff is done by the client, and the server's just passing back numbers, basically back and forth, kind of thing, and verifying results and
mm-hmm.
all that kind of stuff. So like, because of that, like, if it succeeds, kind of thing, and slowly dies out, kind of thing, it would never have to completely go away until it completely died out,
Mm-hmm.
because basically you could rent one server for, I don't know, if you rent a really good server, probably 50, $100 a month, kind of thing. But if you rent a low tier server, I mean, there's low tier servers that I've already rented to do beta testing and stuff on my game that were $5 a month, kind of thing. And you could, in worst case scenario, if the game has any legs to begin with, kind of thing, I can just put up a donation thing, and as long as it makes the $5 or whatever donation that we need, then it stays up, kind of thing. And I wouldn't be making more content for it at that point, but I would still be selling the content that's already there.
Yep.
And it would be able to keep alive. And maybe it's dying, and I do one expensive server, and then it dies more, and then I do more of a mid-tier server, and then it dies more, and then I do more of a low-tier server, and I can change that server size without too much of an issue, kind of thing. And that's going to enable that game to basically be alive forever. Not technically, but assuming that it actually has legs to begin with. But like it, by the time it completely dies, nobody will miss it, because nobody was willing to pay $5 a month. I mean, one person could easily support that game for life, And the fact is if you don't have one person that plays it willing to pay $5 a month, or even a game preserve library or museum willing to pay $5 a month to keep the thing online, I mean, who's going to miss it when it's gone? You know?
And again, like, we could certainly talk more about supporting games long term and kind of like newer ways of earning money, but I think at this point we are over an hour and 40 in. I think this will be a good point to wrap things up, but we can certainly come back to this topic again in the future. And of course, as more mobile games, more free-to-play games are released, there'll definitely be more examples we can pull from for later shows.
Yeah. There's definitely a neon continuum coming down the road at some point.
And we need to get Ramin on so we can both review the game at the same time. But
Ramin said he wanted in on the testing.
All right. But we'll have to do a live stream of the game. We'll just point out all the pay-to-win aspects. We'll just keep going up the grayscale. But that is going to do it for this week's show. I think this was a really great topic, and hopefully for more of the folks who watch this recorded, you got a lot out of this. But let us know what you think in the comments below. If you'd like to suggest a topic, please get in touch for either one of us.
Yeah, and if you came in late, make sure you rewatch the whole thing. It's really, really good topic, I think. And make sure everybody licks the smash button, smashes the like button on both Josh's channel and my channel. Links to my channel is on at the bottom of his. Links to his is at the bottom of mine. Join both of our Discords. Links to both of those are down below. Twitter, all the social media, all that stuff is also for both of us down below in the description.
Yep, and if you want to catch these shows live, we do them Sundays, starting around 4:30 ET. And be sure to tune into our Thursday show in the Inquiries, where we review indie game store pages, starting around 3:30 ET. But other than that, come back for daily discussions on game design here, and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. And until next time, take care.
See ya.